Hi everyone, this is Kylie from Stampers Workshop. Today we're using the Mini Mate stamp set, the tailored tag punch and the beautiful Gilded Autumn Specialty Designer Series paper. We're going to use quite a few of these sheets and aren't they gorgeous? They've got a lovely copper foil to them, really great autumnal feel, love those colours. Let's get started. Take a sheet of early espresso cardstock, score it lengthways and then cut it in half. And you've got your card base. You can put that card base, the second one, aside for another card, but this time I actually need another panel for my card. So put your card base aside. We'll need that at the end, but not just yet. Use your bone folder to get a really crisp edge, then pop that card base aside. Take out the other panel that we also cut and those beautiful papers. I just go through and punch across a couple of lines of the papers that I like. You can see there's a little edge piece, cut that out as well because that will help fill in the gaps as you go around. I use Stampin Seal to adhere my pieces to my base panel, but you can use Tombow Mono Multi Glue if that's your preferred adhesive or whatever your preferred adhesive is. You can also work on your silicone mat so that if you get adhesive over the edge of your panel, it's easily removed. I do just tend to work on my normal workspace, but if I know where I'm putting the piece before I put it down, I try not to put too much adhesive over the edge. But if that happens, it doesn't worry me. Just make sure you press really firmly onto your cardstock base, but not firmly on the rest of it. So once you've finished applying all of the pieces, you can still lift it up really easily. So you can see how those little pieces, which are just little side punched bits, not full pieces, just sort of help fill in those gaps. And make sure you do fill in all the gaps. It just gives you a complete look. So pretty. Okay, I'm just using some normal scissors with a long blade to cut over the edges, relatively roughly, to be quite honest with you. And don't worry if it gets sticky on your blade. I tend to use an alcohol swab and very carefully, because you don't want to cut your fingers, then clean up the blade once I finish with my project. It's looking so pretty already, isn't it? Doesn't it look divine? So easy. Okay, use your paper trimmer. Unfortunately, this one's not available at the moment. It's just my mini one, so you can see it easily on the screen. Chop off the edges to the size that you wanted. I'm just cutting a couple of mils off each side just to tidy up my edges and have a small amount of the card base showing. Use your Stampin Seal or whatever, once again, whatever your preferred adhesive is. I tend to use a fair bit. I want my project to stay together. Doesn't that look great? So I really felt with that sort of card, I didn't need a lot of embellishment or a lot of other details because it's quite busy. You've got the pattern of the punch shapes, but then you've also got the pattern of the paper itself. Now, the paper I'm using has a very vanilla base rather than a white base. So I've just taken a panel of very vanilla. I'm using early espresso again, that ties in with my card base, and stamped my thanks. I decided to use the Stitch So Sweetly dies to cut out my sentiment. That's such a tongue twister. You could use whatever you like, a different punch, any other dies, or just trim it out with your paper trimmer. I usually hold my die in place with a piece of removable adhesive or a post-it note or something like that. You can use the magnetic plates, but I had that on hand ready to go. Okay, I did want an extra little bit of interest to my card, so I'm using a little bit of mint macaron ribbon. It's quite a thick ribbon, but I think it ties in with the card really well because it's the same colour as some of the colours in the paper. I'm using a fair bit of Stampin' Seal because I really want that ribbon to stay. I could have also attached the ribbon directly to my cardstock base. I didn't for this card. So I used a fair bit to hold the ribbon in place. I cut the end of the ribbon on the angle just to give it a bit of a nice finish. And then I'm using quite a few Stampin' Dimensionals to pop up the sentiment just that little bit more. Once again, I didn't have to because there is a little bit of bulk in that ribbon. It's not one of the thinner ones. But I just thought it'd be nice to give it a bit of lift. If you wanted to, you could stop at this point. It looks really lovely as it is, and you do have that copper foil in the background of some of those papers. But I do like a little bit of bling, so those champagne rhinestones seem to be quite a good match. It's not a perfect match, but no one's going to look that closely. I use tweezers in this case to add my rhinestones. You could also use your pick tool. Just position them where you want them and press them firmly so that they do stay in place. And there you go. That's the outside of the card finished. I do like to finish my inside. I tend to keep it quite simple and I try to mimic what I've done on the outside. So I've just taken a panel of very vanilla cardstock. I'm using some of the leftover punched out shapes from before. I was going to take this bit out during editing, but it kind of made me laugh. I had all these beautiful pieces cut, ready to go, and I pick up one that I hadn't measured properly and tried to make it fit. And I persisted with that for quite a while before admitting defeat. This process is much like making the front of the card, except I just wanted to have a little bit of decoration in the bottom and then a little bit up the top. I still wanted to leave some space to write, but it didn't bother me if it was only a little bit. You could also stamp a sentiment here at this point as well. Because I was using so much paper and really cutting down the amount of available white space, I decided not to stamp another sentiment. I can always do that when I come to write in the card, or I can just leave it blank. You don't need to do it. This is the last piece I'm adding, so pop it into position, then turn it over and cut off the excess, and that panel's done. Okay, now that that's all done, apply the Stampin' Seal adhesive or whatever your preferred adhesive is to the back of this panel and add it to the inside of your card, and we are done. It looks so good, doesn't it? It didn't take very long. You can use it with pretty much any patterned paper and it will still look good. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.